All right. We are live for our next session. Welcome, everyone. We're so happy to have you back after that little break. Hopefully, you got a little recharge. So, in this next session, Tabitha Wills will be chatting with Ashley Wilkin, who is a certified holistic nutritionist and herbalist and the owner of the Gut Clinic. They're going to do a deep dive into Ashley's current tech stack, where they'll discuss the role technology plays in scaling Ashley's business, her client interactions, and so much more. So before we dive in, though, I want to introduce you to your session moderator, the lovely Tabitha Wills. So Tabitha is a senior practice success manager at That Clean Life. She empowers health professionals and engaging coaching classes, video tutorials, and personalized support, ensuring they excel at That Clean Life. She's a certified health coach, and Tabitha previously led corporate wellness workshops in Toronto herself, sharing her passion for healthy living. Outside of work, she stays active by training for triathlons, playing hockey, and chasing after her adventurous daughter. Balancing her professional life with motherhood, Tabitha embodies the spirit of wellness and active living. So it's sure to be an awesome session. And Tabitha, I'll hand it over to you to bring Ashley on and dive in.
Thank you so much, Jen. Awesome. Ashley, if you want to come on stage with me, that would be great. And I can give you a nice warm welcome to everyone. Hi, Ash.
Hi.
All right. So welcome, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us. Before we dive in, I really want to do a nice big welcome to Ashley. She is a certified holistic nutritionist with the Canadian Association of Natural Nutrition Professionals. After graduating with diplomas in applied nutrition, nutrition management, and Western herbalism, she continued her education to specialize in gastrointestinal health. And she's actually been working with clients who struggle with IBS, IBD, celiac, GERD, SIBO, and all other gut disorders since 2015. Outside of Ashley's clinical practice, she trains and mentors fellow practitioners looking to support their clients with complex gastrointestinal concerns, including functional testing, nutrition, and herbal therapies to get amazing results. I am so happy you're here. Thanks so much for joining us, Ashley.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
Awesome. So we've got the next, I would say about 30 minutes. Ashley and I are just going to have a chat, and we're going to leave about 15 minutes at the end for your questions. Please be sure to use that Q&A section in the top right so that we can be sure to get to as many questions as possible at the end. For anyone who's an OG That Clean Lifer, does this feel familiar to you at all? Ashley and I used to be colleagues at That Clean Life, and we ran the webinars often together. So this feels like, honestly, just like warm, cozy, and nice at home. Yeah, Jennifer Parker says yes. Abigail says, I'm not crying. So awesome. We're so pumped to be back together. All right, yeah. I thought we would kick this off a little bit by talking about non-negotiables. So when you talk about technology and running your nutrition business, you've obviously, you've come a long way since 2015 to integrate your nutrition technology into your nutrition practice. But are there specific or general tech tools to improve overall efficiency, or maybe something with a more direct purpose? But I would love to know like 3 non-negotiables for you to run your business when it comes to talking about a tech stack.
Ooh, okay. Yeah, if I had to boil it down to 3, obviously things have come a long way from 2015 when everyone was kind of doing things in Google Docs and email. Today, if I had to pick my top 3, of course, Practice Better is making it at the top of the list, because truly that tool is like the heartbeat of my business. Everything happens there, from billing to client protocols to appointment booking, client communications. If I had to pick one tool, that would definitely be at the top of the list. And then 2 other non-negotiables is difficult to narrow it down to.
You can do 5 if you want. I don't want to be limiting.
I walk through all of the different areas outside of, practice management platform that I'm reliant on tools for. So That Clean Life, obviously, I've been using That Clean Life since pretty much as soon as I heard about it. I went to an interview with Abigail back in like 2016.
Yes.
And I can't even remember, like recipe developer or something. And she told me about how, we started as a meal planning platform for people and we're moving it to practitioners. And I was like, oh my, I'm a practitioner and I need this immediately. So I've been using that Clean Life ever since for creating meal plans, recipe books, editing a recipe to make the nutrition a little bit more friendly to a client's specific needs. So from a nutrition side, that is a non-negotiable tool as well. Evexia has become also a really indispensable tool in my practice for sure. So for ordering labs, having everything in the same place versus, you end up with multiple accounts with multiple different labs, and it just adds a lot of admin time, logging in everywhere, seeing what labs are available, what's still on order, following up with tracking numbers and that kind of thing. So having a tool like Evexia where everything is in one place is kind of a big deal for the type of practice that I run. And then obviously, the last 2 years have been interesting with AI coming out. Yeah, that's one where I wish I was utilizing this a little bit more, but even this morning, I was in session with a client and opened up ChatGPT to generate a list of high calcium foods. I was like, just give me a list of high calcium foods with the milligrams per serving listed, so I could easily copy and paste that and put it into their protocol. So even tools like that have popped up have become kind of helpful and borderline indispensable at this point, because once we have that level of convenience, it's kind of hard to go back to pulling up the old resources that we have from school for calcium foods and things like that. It just takes a little bit of extra work off my plate. And then email, I use Flowdesk. So that's a tool.
Okay.
Yeah, that kind of stuff. Zoom, obviously, for client communications as someone who runs a primarily virtual practice.
Yeah, I love that. You touched on AI, which I think is so important to address in like a tech stack conversation, because the reality is that it's here and it actually can improve so much when it comes to a practitioner's well-being. It can, and I mean a practitioner's well-being, like your well-being is just as important as your client's well-being, right? So in terms of leveraging AI in your day-to-day, what are like the 3 common ways that you find yourself opening it up, whether it be in ChatGPT or if it's like infiltrated in another product that you use?
Yeah, exactly. I think ChatGPT is a good example, and I'm already seeing so many people in the chat being like, "Oh, be careful, it's not accurate information." So I use ChatGPT when it's kind of like the example that I gave. I know what high calcium foods are, and I know approximately how many milligrams per serving, but the amount of time that it's going to take me to write that out for a client versus to let a computer do that for me, when it's information that I already know. So I will know right away if it's trying to tell me tahini has 1,000 milligrams of calcium per tablespoon. I know that's not correct. I'm not going to accidentally dispense that information to a client. So I think that that's kind of a situation where I find it really helpful, where I don't feel that the computers are ready to replace my thinking, but they can definitely help me out in the same way that I would allow, maybe like a co-op student to help me out, where
Absolutely.
I'm going to be able to sit their work and know if something's off, and I'm going to be able to look at what ChatGPT said. I wouldn't ask it to tell me something that I didn't already know, because I wouldn't trust it with that information.
Yeah, I think that's a really important clarity point. Like, we're not looking for it to replace our education. We're not looking for it to replace those like key tools that we go to verify or know information. We're just looking for it to curate it in a faster way for us so that we can be sure to get that to our clients faster. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. And I had a client tell me last week that she put her blood work into ChatGPT, which I thought I had never heard of that before. I didn't even know you could do that.
Oh.
But that's kind of an interesting, I don't know if I would necessarily be using it that way at this time, but just thinking about, the idea that you could upload documents and just have like, hey, can you pull out if there's anything on here that we really need to talk about in this context or something? So it is cool to think about where things are going, even if we're not necessarily there yet.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. I would love to know, outside of AI, like, how have these items improved your work and how do you sort of measure that impact? Do you measure it in client outcomes? Do you measure it in client load, like how many clients you're able to grow your practice to? Do you measure it in staff hours saved? Like, how do these non-negotiable tech tools become measurable for you to know that they're necessary in your business?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I think the answer is probably different at every stage of building your business. I would say right now, my metric for how valuable something is or how much it's helping is my stress level. So
Yeah.
if I had to be doing all of these tasks manually, like if I had to be manually booking appointments, I can't even imagine how stressed out that would make me. And now this is something I never do. Like maybe once a week, I'm manually like, oh, hey, I have this appointment open. Do you want to grab it? Because I just got your GI map back or something. But otherwise, it is something that happens completely in the background. It's entirely automated. And then also on the client side, I think a client's ability to go and access something without having to wait on me. Of course, there's going to be things, if I'm replying to a message, I'm the bottleneck there in how much I'm doing, but they can grab their protocol, they can see their recipes, everything is sent to them automatically, and then they're able to just log in and grab that. So if I'm not stressed out and if clients aren't stressed out waiting for things from me, then I feel like this is a tool that's valuable to me. And earlier on, of course, it was, does this attract more people into my practice? Does this allow me to feel more confident as a clinician, knowing that that confidence is going to allow me to maybe take on some more clients? So throughout the journey, it's been helpful in different ways.
Yeah, I can actually speak from the client side of that because I'm working with Ashley right now as one of her clients, and I use despite us having a personal friendship, all of my questions run through Practice Better. And I love that I can pull up my lab results to view them at any time. Like I don't need to ping her to understand like what was the latest in my hair tissue mineral analysis and like what was that nutrient that we talked about. I know it's on my protocol, but like I wanted to see how it looked on the test to know like where that Goldilocks zone is and so on and so forth. So from like my protocol to my lab results to messaging you, like it's so helpful that it's just done right inside of Practice Better. I would also say my number one key thing that I keep returning to over and over again is all of the recipes that you've put together. In my first protocol, you put it together using the integration with That Clean Life, which I found so helpful because it was really interactive and I can like filter to find what those are. Despite having a nutrition background, I don't necessarily want to remember like what ingredient is high in potassium every time I go to make lunch or dinner, right? So it's so helpful to be able to just like log into the space and grab that. And then recently, Ashley's told me that I have to add liver into my diet, which really stresses me out. And she put together just like the most wonderful book for me that I've been able to download, like put on my fridge and just keep it front of mind so that when I start to create my grocery list or when I start to create, when I work up the courage to go to the abattoir to ask them to grind some liver in with my ground meat, it's like right there. I know exactly what I'm making. So I really found those from like the client view, like so seamless and really helpful.
Yeah, I love seeing all the practitioners hyping up liver in the chat right now. I also want to say that on the clinician side, I think this is such a cute example with me and Tabitha because like Tabitha and I are friends. She could totally text me and be like, what was that thing? But she respects me. I respect her. We're not trying to take things in the text messages. And where this is really helpful is because if someone just texts you or messages you on Instagram or, one of your clients reaches out through a different channel and asks you a question about their protocol, assuming that you have more than one client on your caseload, you don't just have everyone's protocols memorized in your head. We do our best and we know what our clients are up to generally, but we are going to need to reference back to our visit notes. We need to reference back to those resources and that protocol that we put together for them. And I have set things up so that in my client onboarding process, it is very clear that the number one way that you are to reach out to me is through Practice Better. And the reason I train my clients to reach out to me this way is because right there in the chat, I can just open up their most recent visit notes, their protocol, without even leaving to a different window, and see what I've given them. And it allows me to answer that question so much faster than if they emailed me or texted me the same question. And now I have to hop over and, okay, what did I tell them again? Oh, here's their most recent lab, and then jump back. It's just one of those little things that makes your day-to-day so much easier.
Yeah, I think a key takeaway there is boundaries, and like you have all of the tools that you need, but if you're not setting up the boundaries as a practitioner, like your tech tools are rendered a little bit useless because you aren't putting the boundaries in place. So I've seen Ashley use like the introduction when I first like booked her page. There were awesome videos that I was able to reference to know like what the process was going to look like, what the timeline was going to look like, and what the buy-in from my end would look like. So I can't express that enough. Like I found that so helpful as a client because I'm very clear. You're very clear on where your boundaries are. Therefore, I know what I'm getting from you. I know what my money is buying me, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, love that. Okay, so we talked a little bit about client outcomes and client progress. Are there any, other than Practice Better, are there any tech tools in your stack that you use to track client progress? Like, how does that look on your end to know, like, client started at point A, we want to get to point B, what are we doing in between? And are there any tools you use in between there?
Yeah, outside of Practice Better, no, everything happens within Practice Better there. So obviously, we start out with a comprehensive intake. So clients are filling out intake forms. There's an automation with that where it will also add to their file. There's a specific question that I ask in their intake form about what they want to see improve, what their top health issues are. And that goes into their medical information on Practice Better. And then in that initial session, I confirm that with them. So we talk about, what are your most pressing symptoms? If it's something that's not totally clear, because I know any, practitioners in the room are going to appreciate that sometimes what a client is asking for is something that's a little bit hard to measure, or something that we know, like, okay, that's a 3-year goal, not necessarily a 6-month goal. So what are our metrics of success going to be during the time that we are working together? So I will make sure that that is stated on their file somewhere. And then each follow-up that I'm seeing them for, we send a check-in form. So that check-in form, first and foremost, asks them what's going well, what they're celebrating. When we're climbing a mountain, sometimes don't stop and pause and turn around and look at how far we've come because we're focusing on that next summit that we're getting to. And in health, I've noticed that this is such a huge part of our job as practitioners, is actually to keep people focused on how far they've come, because they're in their life every day, but we're popping in, at most frequently, maybe every 6 weeks or something. So the progress that we see, they don't necessarily see it as such a stark contrast. They're more focused on, yeah, but this one thing is still bugging me. So first we ask them to kind of focus on like what's going well, and then what's not. If, there's any roadblocks, if there's something that's challenging, how is your body feeling that might not be the way that you want to be feeling? And inside of Practice Better is where I'm tracking all of that. Occasionally, I will have clients use an app like Chronometer, which is, if anyone's not familiar with it, just an app they can download on their phone that they plug in what they're eating, and it gives more detailed nutrition information. I like it better than MyFitnessPal because MyFitnessPal kind of tells people upon downloading to like eat a 1,200 calorie diet and starts prompting them with weight loss questions and stuff. And it's not the vibe for my practice. Whereas Chronometer is a bit more micronutrient focused, keeps them interested in their vitamins and minerals, helps them really understand what they're eating beyond just the calories and the macros. So sometimes I'll ask clients to download that app and plug in their food for a couple of days just to help increase their awareness of if they're hitting those potassium targets or, calcium or whatever nutrient it is that we are focusing on.
That was so helpful to me, by the way. Like, even though I'm in the food space and I understand like the difference, between a macro and a micro, I wasn't dialed in to know like what my potassium levels were at throughout the day, what my sodium levels were at through the day. So that was like really awakening for me. And I think because I have it connected to my Practice Better profile, it dials back into your space, right? Like through the food and mood journal.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. I was just about to say that too. There's different ways to use the food journal in Practice Better. Generally, for 80% of my clients, the only way that we are ever using the food journal in Practice Better is taking pictures of their meals and then uploading it into Practice Better. For most of my clients, I don't get them to write down everything that they're eating. I don't get them to get into that detailed tracking. But when I do, I find that Chronometer is helpful, and we can kind of keep the food journal space in Practice Better for, I always say it's like my own private little Instagram feed that I can scroll with all your food pics.
Wow, pressure to take good food pics. That's awesome. I love that. Yeah, I really found that helpful as a client because you had given me obviously recipes to follow, but then like to be able to fill those in for my entire day for a week, it was like an aha moment. Like, oh, wow, this is how everything like plugs in and is all a puzzle piece. So I think ultimately that ends up empowering your clients a lot more.
Yeah.
What key tools outside of Practice Better are helpful for streamlining administrative tasks? Like you have a team. Do you connect with your team in another space? Do you connect on Practice Better, or how does that look?
Yeah, that's a good question. So any team stuff mostly just happens through Slack. I did go through a period where I set up a whole oh my gosh, I can't even remember the name of the tool that we use now. There was a tool. Obviously, it did not become indispensable. And if I was running a bigger team, if I was, still in that like growth focus in my practice, I might still be using a tool like that. But I find that Slack kind of gives us what we need at this point. And then what was the other part to that? Was team the only question there?
Administrative tasks.
Yeah. Okay. So admin stuff mostly has been able to be directed to Practice Better because my accountant logs into Practice Better. My bookkeeper logs into Practice Better. Anything that needs to be pulled out. I guess technically like QuickBooks is like an administrative thing, but yeah. Everyone knows about that. No one's excited about QuickBooks. We try to stay away from that if at all possible. And most admin things, I will honestly say at this point, it goes to Practice Better. There's also some Zapier. I don't know anything about that. Somebody else is responsible for setting that and managing that. But that is also a tool that helps things talk to each other somehow.
Is that something that you leveraged kind of further down the road? I think with Zapier?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's good to kind of go back to the beginning since I think the key takeaway here is like Practice Better really is like your Grand Central Station. Like you end up stopping here for just about everything. So I'm wondering if there's like some key tools, like you mentioned automation, but there's some key, maybe did you work with templates when you first started using Practice Better as forms, like template forms? Are there any like key stops inside of Practice Better that somebody who's like new to the software should pay attention to?
Yeah, that's a good question. Like if you were starting out and maybe you're migrating your existing practice to Practice Better, or like just a platform in general where you're going to be running your practice from, definitely first, if you already have intake forms, just migrating them in. So for me, I think I already had intake forms of some kind, so I just built them in Practice Better. I didn't use a template. However, I already had a practice when I discovered Practice Better. Right. So if I was a new grad today starting my practice, then I would definitely take advantage of templates because you don't have to think of all the questions on your intake form. And then I really think that the onboarding process is so key and can be so overlooked. And also, it's exciting, right? Thinking about, okay, what is my client going to experience when they come in to work with me? So that's where I would think about those stops along the way. Like when somebody comes in, what do you want them to do right away? So probably fill out their intake forms. So you're going to get that set up maybe you want to give them instructions or help set their expectations, or just some kind of, general welcome sort of message. You can set that up. I use programs for all of that. So I have an onboarding program for each different kind of package that my clients could be coming into, depending on what we're going to be doing together. And that's where they'll find instructions for how to do their food journal. That's where they'll find reminders for completing all their intake forms, instructions for any testing that we might be doing, how to message me, expectations around how long things take, from maybe submitting samples to when we're actually booking our appointments. So I find that just with having those resources in place, it's really cut down on the number of questions that have that then obviously take your time to answer. Now, if you're starting out, are obviously going to need to get those questions to know what kind of resources you need to create. So just pay attention to what your clients are asking you.
Yeah, I think that's a really good call out. That made my onboarding process so seamless with you, but you've seen so many clients, so you know the types of questions that are going to come through. But ultimately, at the end of the day, refining your onboarding process at the beginning is going to save you so much time on the back end. And so how you do that is up to you. The questions that you get are really going to depend on the type of clients that you're seeing. You mentioned you leveraged programs. Are those like an evergreen program? Are those a fixed date program? Do you know how those are set up?
Yeah, they are evergreen self-paced, I think is the way that they're labeled in Practice Better. So I'm going to explain my whole automation. So if anyone
like, listen up, people, please. This is so key. Like, if you are going to save time anywhere, invest your time in your onboarding setup so that you can save time in the back end. Go for it, Ashley.
Okay, so first, the explanation that's required is there's a program that is called the onboarding program. There are different onboarding programs for different programs in my practice, but that part's not important. So there is a onboarding program that's been created. This is where you would go in and you would put whatever information you want your client to see. So welcome, here's what to do next. Here's how to contact me. That's the bare minimum that you need. And then depending on what else you're doing, if you're doing testing, if you're getting them to do food journals, whatever, anything you want them to do, any homework. Okay, so that's created. So my only thing that I really have to do is I meet with a potential client. Once we've decided that we're going to work together, I go into their account, I click book a package, and I have my packages created so that they include a certain number of appointments, certain types of appointments, and then access to the onboarding program. So I book them for a package. So if they're doing like a gut health deep dive, then I click that, and automatically they get the intake forms for that program. They get added to the onboarding program. So they get an email saying, start here. This is what we need from you. They click it. It takes them right there. It, I think, automatically generates an invoice, or maybe that's one other thing that I have to click to decide if they pay or they do a payment plan, or whatever we've talked about. Their intake forms are automatically sent. Like, everything from after I book them for that program is done. So it's one conversation, I click 2 buttons, and everything else is completely automated until that client reaches out and says, okay, I've submitted my samples, and then we know to book them for their consultation. They can even go in and do that without my help, but most people need me to remind them or send them a link or something like that.
Yeah.
But all of that is automated. So that whole onboarding process is something that you could build out. It took me years to create this the way that it is now, from having my onboarding just be a PDF document that was created in Canva, all the way to having it being a step-by-step program through Practice Better. But if I was starting today, the way that I have this now, I think is such a dream, and it cuts down significantly on the number of questions. And basically, we book a client, they're good to go, and I don't need to put any admin hours into managing that client until we have our intake session. And everything I need from them is done by the time we have our intake session. I've got their forms, I've got their food journal, I've got everything I asked them to do because it was so clear.
I love that. That's so helpful. It sounds like automations are really key here too in order to save you time. So if you haven't gotten to know automations inside of Practice Better, I highly recommend checking those out. The support team can also help you with that if you need clarity on what automations you need help with, for those who are asking about automations in the chat. Okay, I think we've got 15 minutes left. I think it's a good time to dive into our Q&A so that we can try and get through these as much as possible. Also, I wanted to drop your where we can find you. Everyone wants to know where to find you. So is it just thegutclinic.ca and then your handle, your Instagram handle?
Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, definitely. Like there's the website, and then you can also find me on Instagram. I'm pretty active there. So if you have questions or want to connect or something.
Perfect. Yeah, your Instagram is linked on your website as well. So be sure to check out her website and you can go right through for that. Okay, so somebody's asking, what do you mean by an onboarding program? I think we've clarified that a lot. So definitely like labeling that an onboarding program, leveraging the programs directly inside of Practice Better to get those done. So hopefully we got a lot of clarity there for you. So someone's wondering how you get clients. Like, what's your main way of acquiring clients? Because you feel very booked, very busy, very like your business is very client centered. And what's your primary way of acquiring clients?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, again, it's been a few years, so a lot of referrals and word of mouth come through now, which I'm really grateful for. And aside from that, honestly, social media marketing has always been kind of the main way that I find people find me, that I'm getting clients. Obviously, having like an email list and things help, but you need to be visible somewhere in order for people to even get onto your email list for that to work for you, right? So I've never paid for any kind of advertising. It's always been organic marketing just from the beginning. And now, luckily, after some years, things have snowballed a bit, and I'm able to also enjoy a lot of referrals and word of mouth.
Yeah, that's great. Somebody is wondering, do you ever have clients who are a little bit like tougher with tech? And if so, like what are your strategies to making them comfortable with tech?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So because of the fact that most of my clients find me through social media, this isn't a huge problem. But I love this question because last week I had a referral who was like a 75-year-old woman, came from someone who I've been working with for quite a while. And she can barely email me. It's very cute and it's been very interesting. So for cases like that, honestly, I don't mind if it's a referral from a loved client. Like she's been able to book her appointment with the link that I sent her, which obviously is my Practice Better booking link. And she'll get an email, with her protocol after we have our appointment. But I asked her to do a food journal and she's keeping it in like a Microsoft Word document on her iPad. Like, I have no problem with this. Maybe if I specialized in gerontology and this was going to be the majority of my client base, I would really have more strategies to offer there. But for the odd client who comes through my practice, I'm happy to just meet them where they are and make it work.
Yeah, that's lovely. I really like that. All about meeting your clients where they're at. Do you think that's probably spoken to a lot of your success, is being able to meet your clients where they're at?
Oh, maybe. I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. You met me where I was at. Becky's wondering, how do you create a book like Tabitha mentioned about liver? So Becky, I can answer that. Ashley is also a user of That Clean Life. So That Clean Life is Practice Better is That Clean Life's parent company, and you just log in at thatcleanlife.com. You can sign up there, and you can create PDFs, or if you're already a Practice Better user, you can embed these books right into your protocols, just under the nutrition tab. So if you need some more information about that, you can check out help.practicebetter.io, or you can reach out to the support team there and they can walk you through that. I really do believe, especially so like coming from the health coach perspective of people that I worked with from before versus now also being your client, having something other than just a list of foods to follow is so important in client success. Like I know personally when I was handing out recipe books, that was that recipe book was used far more and also created a much more successful client than just simply stating like a list of do's and don'ts or haves and haves nots. Because sometimes your client needs just like a little bit more inspiration than, a list of foods that they can incorporate because they don't necessarily have the knowledge on how to put those foods together. Like the moment Ashley said liver, I was like, like I love being in the kitchen, but I had no idea how to cook it. I had to cook it once for a nutrition class I was in, a nutrition, the CNE program. I had to cook it and I cooked it all wrong. It was terrible. It's ruined my entire experience with liver. And so as a result, like my radar went up. So how I feel about liver might be the same way a lot of your clients feel about broccoli, about cabbage, about just like adding plants in general, about searching for different plants that they can incorporate in their food or different protein sources or, being able to like increase their micronutrients or lower their fat content on certain things. So the response from that is, it's so easy to get in your head as a client. So it's so nice to have a resource like a recipe book or your embedded nutrition plan that they can reference, even if it's just a book or a meal plan. Sorry, I didn't mean to step on your toes there, Ashley, but I wanted to make sure we got that question there.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Kaylee's got a great question, actually. In your tech stack, do you think it's important to have a website? How do you feel about that? Could you just leverage Practice Better? Do you think a website is important? Do you have opinions on that?
Yeah, I don't know that I have any strong opinion on the matter, but I definitely think that it is possible to run your whole practice without having a website. A website is marketing, right? So if you, I don't know, have a really great community that knows you, or if you're local, like you want people to be able to find you. But in terms of running your practice, like a website's not really going to do anything for you. So I would put that more marketing bucket. Definitely you need people to be able to find you, but also you could have a Google page and people could find you through searching like nutritionists near me, and your clients could leave you reviews there. So a website's going to help you make sales, it's going to help you book clients, but I wouldn't say it's like, I don't log into my website to do anything other than post the occasional blog these days.
That's very fair. I like to think of it as a business card for sure, like a one-stop shop so that you can, I think you do a great job of nurturing through social, but like then getting people onto your email list, which is like a great one, like a like stopover. Your website is kind of like a stopover. And I don't know that it's necessary if you're just starting out. You can leverage Practice Better, but if you want to invest more into your marketing, it might be a great opportunity to add something. It's pretty low cost in the grand scheme of things too.
Yeah.
Latasha's wondering, on that Clean Life, can you give items and it creates a recipe for that list of foods you give? So maybe Ashley can talk a little bit about how she uses that Clean Life in her practice, but to answer your question, you can totally search for ingredients that you want to include, and it brings up recipes that include those ingredients. So maybe turmeric is something that you'd love your client to start incorporating more into their diet. They've never even heard of the spice, let alone know how to incorporate it. So you can look for recipes that contain turmeric. You can put together a cute little turmeric recipe book, or you can incorporate those recipes into a meal plan for them and send it out to them, whether it be using Practice Better or just in a PDF.
Yeah. A good example would be liver. So if you have a client and you really want them to eat more liver, you can go into that Clean Life and you can include liver and then pull out the recipes that include liver and send it to your client so you can see that it's not that intimidating.
We're not harping on this at all. Judy is wondering, how do you get your clients to do their modules? Is there something specific that you're doing to motivate your clients? Are the types of clients that are coming to you intrinsically motivated? Like, what's happening there?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think that's where the main way that I use programs in Practice Better is for onboarding and for live programs. So that is very different than if you are like selling a self-paced program and trying to motivate your clients to do the modules when they don't have, an appointment coming with you or something. So it's definitely a different motivation level. So I have never had to, once someone books their package and pays their invoice, they're not usually going to go sleep on me for the next 3 months. It happens, but very, very rarely. So most people are immediately going to fill out their intake forms. They're going to want to do their next steps. They're really excited and highly motivated. And then for live programs, it's the modules are going live weekly after we have our live call. So we all meet, we get all pumped up and excited, and then the resources go out. So I'm never in my business, and it's something I would like to get to. You know, everyone wants to have programs that they don't need to be spending 8 hours a day on Zoom, and they're still generating revenue and helping people improve their lives. But I do not have any secret sauce for getting people to just buy a program and then do it without hand-holding or involvement along the way.
Yeah, that's great. I know that when you touched on Avexia for Labs, there was quite a lot of chatter in the chat. And so I wanted to get back to a couple of those questions. Someone's wondering, how did you choose Avexia, and have you ever used something like Rupa? Did you want to answer that?
Yeah, so when I started using Avexia, Rupa was not available in Canada. So it was kind of my only option. And they've been super, super good to me. And there is no hole that I'm finding. It's not like I can't do anything that I want to be able to do. So maybe it's just loyalty at this point for the fact that I'm still using them if Rupa has expanded into Canada. But that was my main way of deciding, was they were serving Canadian practitioners and Rupa at the time was not.
Perfect. That's so helpful to know. And we've got time for one last question. I just want to make sure I've got these. Sarah is wondering, there are so many social media platforms available now. Should I focus on them all? Should I focus on one? Did you find one that you had the most success with when you were first starting out?
Yeah, this is a good question. Only you can decide this for yourself. And I think your mental health is going to be the thing that has to drive that decision. Because I'm sure from a marketing standpoint, you can make the argument like, yes, you should be on every platform. You should be as visible as possible. That's going to get you the best results. I did the TikTok thing for a couple months and I was like, this app is cigarettes for your brain. Like this is not okay. I can't go on here. If you have a marketing team and they want to handle and you want to destroy the mental health of some little 20-year-old, okay, that's your own business. But TikTok, I absolutely cannot with TikTok.
I can't either.
Find where you're comfortable. Nurture a community that is genuinely connected to you and that you actually care about, right? So if you're just posting everywhere to make sales and get visibility, you're probably not going to have the same level of results as if you were fostering a community on one platform and really investing in that. Now there's downsides to that because you don't own that and it could be taken away from you at any moment. But that's why we have email lists and that's why we have ways of taking people off of social, right? But if you're intimidated by the new tools, the new platforms that the kids are using, like don't stress about it because your clients probably aren't on there anyway.
I think that's a really great advice. There's only so much you can do as a single practitioner. Even if you have a small team, the tasks that you offload are select and they have to be, most bang for your buck, for lack of a better phrase. So I think, like you said, fostering a community is really the key takeaway from social media. So wherever you do that is where feels comfy to you, where it feels like the most impactful to you. And if social media isn't it, then you likely have other tools that you can leverage, whether it be in-person workshops or other in-person meetups, and leverage those wherever feels good and most authentic to you, because that is the single most way to lead to burnout, is leveraging tech tools that don't, mitigate tasks for you, don't ultimately leverage your workflow. Enhance your workflow. Perfect. We are about a minute from ending, and I know that we cut off right at the minute, so I'm going to end it there. Ashley, I really wanted to thank you for your time. I know that you're super busy and you have so many other things you could be doing, but being here is in front of the community is so important for us. And we really respect you so much in the way that you use these tools. So thanks for taking time to speak with our audience, let them know exactly how you're using it. And if you have any If you're a practitioner that has more interest in gut health, you can check out Ashley's mentorship program. Just go to thegutclinic.ca and you'll be able to connect with all of her resources there. Thanks everyone for your time as well, for joining live.
Awesome. That was such a wonderful session. Thank you, Tabitha. Thank you, Ashley. So we just have a couple more seconds and we're going to get pushed to our next sessions. We'll have our breakout sessions coming up next. So we're going to have one room with Fullscript and one room with Sachin Patel from Perfect Practice. So you'll be prompted to select which breakout room you would like to join. And don't worry, they're being recorded. So if you can't choose, just pick one and you'll be able to tune into the replay for the next one. I'll see you there.